At some point in your acting career, if you want to be a professional, you will consider joining one of the actors' unions out there. And that is what we're going to be talking about in this video. I am joined by a special guest, Chip Wood. More on that after the bump. Hi, I'm Doug Fall, your Augmented actor, helping you augment your acting career with tips, tactics, and tech. We have a little special episode today. I am joined by a friend of mine who is also an actor, Chip Wood, and we're going to be talking about unions. Chip.
Doug, I think this is a great place for this conversation because I really feel that your channel is an excellent resource, not only for new actors, but for seasoned professionals as well, who are looking for advice on various related topics, like actor technique, how-to videos, and even advice on one's acting career. Mm-hmm. So I think this is the perfect venue for that.
Yeah. And you have a YouTube channel yourself that's related to acting. What is that channel?
Yes, it's an educational channel called An Actor's Guide to Audio Recording. And the channel name is 10 Decibel, and that's designed to teach actors the art of voiceover and the technology involved with it and the training that has to be completed to do that as well.
Cool, and there's links on the screen and down in the description below for if you're interested in Chip's channel. And I wanted to mention that we are on the set of Frost Nixon at Second Story Rep here in Redmond. We're graciously given access to this set to shoot this video, so that's why it's a little bit different from our normal format. Chip, tell us a little bit about what we're talking about today.
Well, I noticed that in addition to this YouTube channel, you've developed a Facebook group, and it also is called Augmented Actor. But what I like about the Facebook group is that members can posit questions as well, seeking advice from other members of the community. And in turn, those actors share their experiences, and we learn from each other. And about 3 weeks ago, a very relevant question was posted, and it was, should I join Actors Equity? And after a little bit of research on our part, we're going to discuss that today.
Yeah, neither of us is currently in Actors Equity, and we will be talking about some of the other unions as well. But Chip was formerly a union actor in Actors Equity. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you joined the union and why you stopped.
I was a member of Actors Equity for 20 years. I started in the North Texas market, theater community, and I moved to the Seattle theater community 6 years ago. I had a great experience with Equity. It's a great union. But when I moved here, I realized that I was going to be a new face in a community of thousands of actors. And so I felt that it would be to my benefit to resign from Equity so that I could make myself available to work wherever I wanted to and wherever an opportunity came available.
And did you struggle with that decision at all? I mean, was it an easy decision for you to make to leave the union?
Not particularly, because after I moved to Seattle, I soon got coverage with ACA, the Obamacare program, and I no longer needed to scrabble hard every year to earn the weeks for health coverage. And I wasn't particularly concerned about being paid well to do theater, so it was a good choice for me.
And do you think that you will ever join again, or is that because you're in this location you don't find it viable anymore?
Well, I've had so many wonderful experiences at smaller independent theater companies that I would lose those chances if I were to join the union again. And I have several other jobs that help actually to pay the bills while theater remains my passion.
Right. Yeah, and I've never been a member of the union, but I have worked under union contracts, both with SAG-AFTRA and Actors Equity. I started in Salt Lake City. There was only maybe 2 or 3 union theaters out there at all. But I started my EMC Equity Membership Candidate Program, which is a way of joining the Equity Union. You earn a point for every week that you work in a union house. And it took me about 35 years or so to get the qualified number of weeks in order to join the union.
And then something ironic happened, right? What happened at that point?
Well, I had a 5-year period to join the union, and I thought to myself, I'm going to join if I get an equity contract, if I get cast in equity shows, if I suddenly win an award, or I'm working a lot, that kind of, those would all be signs to join. And none of that happened in that whole 5-year period. It was just dead, and I let my time lapse, and so now I have to start the whole EMC program over again. And then ironically, a few months later, I got offered an equity contract. And I still decided at that time I could join. That's the other way you can join the union, is being offered an equity contract. Then you have the choice to join. And I decided I'm still not ready. I need a little bit more proof that I can make it viable.
The 3 primary ways of joining. You can get offered an equity contract. You go through the EMC program, and by the way, the minimum number of weeks has been reduced from 50 to 25.
That's right. Or you can become a member of one of the 5 sister unions of performing arts.
And join through them into equity.
There are 5 American sister unions for actors. First up is AEA, Actors Equity Association, which covers stage actors and stage managers. The second is SAG-AFTRA, which combines the Screen Actors Guild and the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, and covers actors who appear on any kind of screens, web, or radio. Next is AGMA, the American Guild of Musical Artists, which covers musicians, opera singers, and ballet dancers. Then we have AGVA, the American Guild of Variety Artists, which covers performers like jugglers, magicians, and burlesque. Lastly, there is GIAA, which is the Guild of Italian American Actors.
And so if you join any of those unions, you work for a year and you're currently active in it, you can pay a small fee to join any of the other unions. So those are the 3 ways.
Let's talk about the financial obligations of joining equity. Currently, the initiation fee is $1,700. Dues are $174 a year, plus 2.5% of gross earnings from the paychecks that you earn while doing a show. So you seem to be more knowledgeable about how to join equity via another union. And specifically, SAG is the most common one. What do you know about that?
Well, the SAG union, first of all, their dues are quite considerably higher, especially in the LA, New York. The national dues right now are currently $3,000 to join. But if you're in a smaller market like Seattle, I think the starting dues are a lot lower. And if you're in a market where there's no film work whatsoever or no union work, it's often advised that you get your union card before you move to those larger markets like LA or New York, because everything is union out there and it's very hard to break in without having a union card. So if you're thinking of moving to a big market and that's your goal, is to just go be on Broadway or be in the movies, get your card somewhere else before you go there. It's not impossible to get it in LA, but it's harder. It's much harder.
Aside from New York, the cities with the most equity houses are Philadelphia, Chicago, Washington, D.C., Boston, and Minneapolis. And Central Florida has to be acknowledged because with nearly 1,000 members, many of them are working under a Disney contract.
Of course. And I imagine California is a little like that too, but California is more SAG-AFTRA heavy. Let's talk a little bit about the benefits of being in a union, because there's a lot of people who are union actors that swear by being a union actor and what the union is there for and what it does to protect actors.
Right. I think first we have to acknowledge the importance of labor unions in American history. They're designed, by definition in the dictionary, a labor union is an organization of workers formed for the purpose of advancing its members' interests in respect to wages, benefits, and working conditions. And Actors Equity is the largest theater union in the country, and it has a history that goes back well over 100 years, providing protections for actors and stage managers. Here's some of the benefits under an equity contract. You're guaranteed a minimum salary.
Meaning they have to pay you a base rate that is negotiated in advance by the union, and you can still negotiate higher rates than that as well.
We're talking about the financial value of being an equity member. Is it important to you, to Doug, to be paid well when you do a theater production, if you're in a role that you're passionate about?
It's important for me at this stage in my career to be paid something.
Agreed.
I feel like doing free work is only for charity and not for anything else, really. But a lot of the non-union theaters in town pay stipends. They don't pay you an actual wage. The few that do pay wages it's minimum wage, hourly. So you can't really make a full living off of it. You're paid $250 to $700 to 500, those kind of ranges for most runs of shows, which can be long sometimes. But at the same time, those shows are generally, they work in the evening hours, your rehearsal times are pretty light, the runs are pretty short and compact and don't take up a lot of your time. Whereas if you're in a union show, you're going to be doing 8 shows a week, rehearsing 10 hours a day.
And you'll be rehearsing during the daytime, typically.
Yeah, during the daytime, so yes. So if you have a day job, for instance, as an actor, or a night job, you can often work around the non-union things, whereas you pretty much have to drop everything to do a union show, unless you have a really exceptional situation.
Theaters must follow rules that ensure safe and clean working environments. You may attend equity-only auditions. Members are eligible for health insurance. Now there's some caveats in this one, Doug. If you work 11 weeks during any 12-month period, you earn 6 months of health coverage. So that's not even a full year.
Right.
If you want year-round coverage, you have to work 19 weeks in a 12-month period.
Right. It's like any place that offers health insurance. You have to work in order to earn the health insurance. But the problem with working as an actor is the show ends every few weeks or months or whatever, and a new show starts, and you're not always going to get cast in it. So if you're thinking of joining equity for insurance purposes, you need to be a working actor. You need to be getting at least 2 or 3 shows a year to stay viable enough for not only the insurance, but for pensions and things that are another benefit, 401k and all those things, which is another benefit you get for being in the union. But that's the trade-off with that. If you work at show, like we're in the Seattle area, and one of the equity houses for musical theater is Village Theater, and they do 3-month-long runs. So one show will get you your 6 months of, so if you do 2 shows a year, you're covered,
Yeah.
But that's easier said than done. One of the other benefits that the union brings, which is a totally different subject than money, is the protections that they afford, the breaks that are built in to union rules, and the safety precautions and things that can and cannot be done with an actor, and over time, all those things are built into that union, and that the union is responsible for bringing those rules into place. And I'm finding that most non-union theaters adopt those equity rules when they do rehearsals. They take breaks every hour, hour and a half, that kind of thing. And so I think that there's protections that spill out into the non-union world.
Working in non-union houses, do you see an absence of those protections? Have you worked in an unsafe environment?
I have, and another question that I posed on the Facebook channel was, what are some dangerous
I saw that.
situations, and people were in all kinds of precarious things, broken glass and kinds of things like that.
Astonishing.
Which would never be allowed in a union house. It's not rampant, but it used to be. In the older days before the union, people used to work, actors, long hours, and kids especially.
Especially in the early 1900s.
Yeah. And so that's why the unions were formed, is just we're tired of these horrible conditions. But yeah, I do see a lot of, especially on amateur film sets, there are a lot of people doing their own stunts and squibs and kinds of things like that, and I've seen situations in theater where you're kind of on a janky platform, and I'm not sure if this is really built properly, and I could fall, and people are like, oh, don't worry about it. But like when you work in a non-union house, usually you are providing your own insurance. If you get hurt, you're SOL as far as workman's comp or anything like that. Whereas in a union house, you get workman's comp. So injure yourself at a union house. But there can be some safety issues.
So those are some great benefits to being involved with the union. But there are many reasons that people choose not to join the union. And what are some of those benefits?
Well, like you say, you can work in a union theater as a non-union actor. You take a smaller paycheck for that. but you still have those opportunities, and then you can work in any non-union theater you want. So if you're finding that you get most of your work from community theater or church or school or anything like that, then you're going to probably not want to join the union, at least right away.
I feel that the greatest consideration has to do with the market that you're in. It has to do with frequently geography.
Absolutely.
If you live in an area without many equity theaters, it simply makes sense not to join the union, because many of those large houses, Lord D houses, will continue to employ the same actors over and over again, because they're drawing from a talent pool that they've grown to trust and rely upon, and deliver consistently. Unfortunately, it's this business is all about who you know. And it's a phrase you've heard often, but it's because it's true.
Yes.
And more often than not, the creative team are going to put people in shows who they have a past experience with, and which makes it difficult for a newcomer to a theater community to get into, to break into that tier or that club. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree, and I think that the primary path that most actors take is they get cast in ensembles of shows. They work their way up, and they get known in those theaters as they rise up in the ranks. And sort of by earning your EMC points, by doing that, you're kind of building your reputation, you're building your brand and your visibility to other directors and casting directors. So as you're doing that, if all works copacetically, you'll earn your way into that point. You know, a lot of actors have to pay their dues just to get seen at a union house or to get an audition, and paying your dues starts over again once you get your equity card. If you get it too soon, you have to then pay your dues by paying a lot of money and still trying to break through.
When is the right time to join? There's a highly respected acting coach in Chicago. She says that these are the questions you should ask when you ask, should I join equity? Does your resume highlight a few dream roles that you were perfect for? Are there recent credits from equity theaters? Have you worked as an EMC? And do you have training such as a BFA or MFA in theater or musical theater? I think all of those are important. Is there anything you would add to that?
Money, are you financially able to afford to join the union? Meaning not only to pay those dues and upfront costs, but the job that you currently have to support you, will that continue to support you in between gigs? Or would you be making enough money as a union actor to support yourself fully throughout the year?
If your credits, your training, your relationships, and commitment are in place, you should join. I feel. And if not, you should begin building your professional theater credits. And if you're not living in a large market with a lot of equity theaters, it may be in your best interest to stay non-union. So you'll be able to say yes to any opportunity that comes along. There's a saying that I heard long ago when I was trying to make the same decision. The difference between equity, choosing to go equity or non-equity, is whether you want to take the roles that you're passionate about, or do you want to take the roles that are available to you? There's a lot in that statement.
Yeah, until you reach a level where you can then do both, you know, take the roles that are offered and those are the roles you want.
Exactly.
And I know a lot of actors in town here that do make it, you know, they are in that, they've got a theater or two that cast them all the time. They are stellar performers and people know them around town, that kind of thing. So that's the ideal place to go. And the only way you can really get there is by taking the leap and pushing forward it. So there's a lot to be said for that drive that an actor has, and also just your own talent and its marketability, and being aware of what you have to offer that's unique. All those things can play into your decision as well. The more either diverse your abilities are, for instance, can you do plays and musicals and work in several of the equity theaters that are around, or are you a go-to talent that keeps coming back to the same one or two theaters over and over and over again? If you can get yourself in either one of those situations where you're castable, you're being cast, and you're a known name to those casting agents and directors, then you should join. it makes a lot of sense, you know. But otherwise, the majority of actors, even really good actors out there, tend to find more work. They're able to play larger roles often at the smaller non-union theaters because there's just more opportunity available. And that leads me to something where I wanted to also touch on, which isn't in the notes, is how union theaters work. They often start off in a year-by-year plan where they have to offer a certain number of contracts in year one, and then that increases in year two, and then so on until they become full LORT D or LORT C theater. So those union theaters have a certain number of non-union contracts, and usually as they're working their budgets up to being able to afford equity actors, they cast a lot of non-union actors. So that's really an opportunity that benefits the non-union actors more than the union actors sometimes, because those theaters are not going to offer those equity contracts when they're allowed to offer non-union contracts. It's only when they're not allowed to offer those non-union that we start to see more union work. And I think that's the question that a lot of people in the unions are trying to face, is how do we benefit the membership more? How do we create more opportunity when so many theaters are on such small budgets? Second Story here, you know, it's a 90-seat house, and they're operating on a very small budget. They can't afford even a guest contract, you know. So it's like, but
they're paying their actors.
But they pay their actors, you know, and they're, you know, of a really nice quality too, you know. So there's a place for those theaters, and they're important theaters. And I see a lot of union members say all theaters should pay, and everything should be professional. And it's like, well, that would cut a lot of people out of a lot of work, and a lot of shows wouldn't get done because they're too big casts or that kind of thing, you know. So I see both sides of that issue. You want more opportunity, and with more opportunity for union members, you get more jobs. And so it's kind of a catch-22. Right now, I don't think it's working to make as many jobs as it needs to.
To be clear, you and I have both benefited from that situation.
Absolutely.
Getting a contract at a large LORT D equity house. And usually, it's just a slightly lower rate than the equity actors are making. It was in my case. Did you find that to be true?
I found it was a few $100 a week, maybe, difference. Different actors, when you're negotiating your contracts, you know, we don't all talk what we're making, but yeah, in general, I don't feel like we were making that much less than the union actors. And I wanted to read some of the comments that people left on the Facebook group, the Augmented Actor Facebook group. The link is in the description below, by the way. One person says, I'm an EMC, equity member candidate. As soon as I got all my weeks, equity theaters stopped being interested in me. One offered a role, and when I told them I had my weeks, they said it was okay because it was a right to work state and I could do the show without an equity contract. Unfortunately, that's what some people in a smaller market, that person might not have been marketable enough to that theater, or they got used to using them as a non-union actor, and now suddenly they're union and they don't know what to do with them because they can't put them in a bigger role.
Not going union allowed me to spend my 30s building a resume of performances that I still can't believe I was lucky enough to have. I can do new works and fringe festivals, and I can work with whomever I want, whenever I want. That seems to be the perfect capsulization of why one might not want to join the union.
Right. Until you can say that about union work, it's probably in your best interest not to do that. Well, you can do new works, and you can do fringe festivals, you can get guest contracts as an equity actor, but you have to get to that level first. And until you can prove that to yourself, it may not behoove you to join a union.
I joined equity because I wanted to be taken seriously by friends, family, colleagues, and theater producers. I wanted to be able to say, I'm a classically trained, union card-carrying Shakespearean actor. Never regretted it. One of the intangible benefits of being an equity member is simply the fact that holding a union card gives a person a sense of accomplishment and pride in their craft. And I hear that a lot from equity members, a proud union member.
Yes, there's a badge of honor that comes with earning your card because you do have to earn it. Some other unions, you just sort of work at a place, you know, there might be some requirements and stuff, but you don't have to spend weeks and weeks of your time to get into those unions. So when you finally earn that, or you're finally offered an equity contract, it's kind of the next step. It shows that you're moving from sort of the amateur level to the pro level. That doesn't mean those two can't intermingle, but I just wanted to point that out. A lot of pros are very proud of their card.
I'd agree with you. You and I have a friend in common who's a member of Equity, and one of his favorite phrases to throw around is pros get paid. Mm-hmm. What constitutes a professional actor?
You become pro when you devote all of your time and energy to this career path. If you're not willing to risk something, and if you're not willing to travel to find work or relocate to find work, then you're going to struggle.
That's right, because a lot of our union friends follow the work wherever it may be.
Right.
Well, they might be living in California right now, maybe Chicago in a few months, and they go where the work takes them.
I'm Equity, but I regret it occasionally when a bucket list part comes along that's non-union.
That's tough.
Yeah.
Because
even if you're a non-union actor, these bucket roles can be hard to get.
Yeah.
Because all the guys our age are going to audition for them. So I can see how an equity card would make it even more challenging.
It's like you don't even have the opportunity to audition for it.
That's right. Yeah.
You're cut out of it. But then there's people that are probably non-union going like, I really wanted that opportunity to do it there, the 10,000 seat house.
At that theater.
Right. But that's where that bucket list is going to really shine for you, as if you were to land it in a big house.
I think we can agree that there are certain elements that must be in place before a person decides to join an equity. Mm-hmm. Let's review those.
Yeah. So there's financial considerations. Can you afford it, and is it paying you? Your location. Do you have union houses around you, or union film work if you're SAG-AFTRA? And are there roles available that you can play? Do you have access to join the union? Have you earned your points? Have you earned had your education, your weeks? Are you part of another union? Your training, all that. And are you working? Those are all valid considerations. And then are you willing to give up? Are you willing to sacrifice all the non-union work out there in order for the hope that you will rise to bigger and better opportunities? And are you ready to turn into a professional and to take this career seriously and not just doing it because you like it? And if you're not at that stage and you find benefit from just doing an occasional show, you're in it because you like the people you meet and the community.
You want to build your resume.
Or you want to build your resume, you want to have fun doing it, go to cast parties and that kind of thing. Not that can't happen in those other theaters, but if that's what you're in it for the love of it, and you would do it for free, and you are doing it for free, then there's no harm in continuing to do that. There's no shame in not being a member of a union. You're gonna forgo money for all the rest of that.
Mm-hmm. Doug, I really want to thank you for inviting me to join you today.
Yeah, I want to thank you for
it was a really great conversation on a very important subject.
If you enjoyed what you saw here today, remember to hit the subscribe button and like this video, because that really helps me produce more content like this. And I'm glad to see you here today. Thank you for joining us. Bye.